This is lesson 1.3, right expressions. You'll notice this whole chapter is really dedicated to helping you get good at the basics of algebra so that you can fly when we get to the harder stuff. All right, so a lot of algebra is translating words into equation. So the whole goal of this is to take words and create expressions and eventually equations. Expressions are basically things like 2 plus x or 5x, things like that, which don't have an equal sign. Okay, once you start an equal sign, if I did this, this would now become an equation. So our goal is to take sentences in English and translate them into math. That's what this is. So what things represent addition? Right? If you were to brainstorm what words you would use for addition. When I ask students, they'll say, plus. Usually that's the first thing students tell me. Or they'll tell me, the sum. Right? Or if you want to get fancy, more than. Or increased by. So if I use what I had up here, right, which was 2 plus x, and I'll stick it here on the far right, and I'm talking about addition words, I would say, and I will put this in a different color just so that I don't mix things up. This is the sum of 2 and a number x. But I'm guessing a lot of you are saying to yourselves, I would not have said that. I would have said 2 plus x. And if you had, you'd be right. That's another way of doing it. You could say x more than 2. You always do with the second number, right? You could say it's x more than 2 because you're starting with 2 and you're adding x, right? You could say 2 increased by x because you're starting with 2 and adding x, right? So you could say 2 increased by x. Okay, it is important to know this because say you're in a word, right? You have a word problem and it says Jenny had 6 more dolls than the 2 that Mary had, right? So you're doing 2 plus 6, right? So it's important to keep all of these words in mind and to spot them when you have a word problem. All right, let's look at subtraction words. Subtraction word, what is the equivalent of plus? Minus. The equivalent of sum? The difference. Less than instead of more than. Decreased by. So if I had n minus 6, and this is important, so look really closely because this is, in minuses are where people often get mixed up. This is n minus 6, right? No arguments. And you'll probably also say, oh, the difference of n and 6. Now, going in reverse, guys, if you saw the difference of n and 6, and you're like, oh, does that mean 6 minus n or n minus 6? Whichever one is mentioned first here is first here, okay? So you don't get confused. How else can we say it? What if we use less than? Is this 6 less than n or n less than 6? Well, it's 6 less, right? Minus 6 means you're subtracting 6. It's 6 less than n. Important to see that. 6 less than n. How about decreased by? N, you have n, whatever that is, and you're decreasing it by 6. So n decreased. And I'm running out of space. By 6. Very, very important. When I have students mess up, this is usually the #1 place they mess up. Okay, and so we're going to do some examples of this to kind of get this straight in your minds. Let's move on to multiplication and division. I'll turn this over because sometimes I end up with the marker going through my papers. Multiplication. What are the words that are used for multiplication? Times, right? And actually, just as an example, we'll do this. I'll put this on the right. 12y times product multiplied by and this you should have learned in Saxon of. So how does that apply here? Let me just change colors. 12 times, and the book says a number, but you get it, 12 times y. The product of 12 and y, right? 12 multiplied by y. And of, we will see with fractions and decimals. So of, if you see, of is where you see 1/2 times 6, right? This can be called, for example, 1/2 of 6, right? And last, let's look at division. In division, we have things called quotient, and we'll go through that. We have divided by, and you have divided into, the opposite. So what if I have k over 2? Well, if I have the quotient of k and 2. Now, if you remember what I said with subtraction, if you just saw this and you nothing else, the quotient of k and 2, would you be saying it's 2 divided by k or k divided by 2? Just like with subtraction, the first number goes on top. So in other words, the first number goes first. And hopefully that will save you some problems. You can say k divided by 2, or more rarely, but sometimes used, 2 divided into k. We won't use that too much, but you should know it. Okay, so that's my intro, and I'm going to do a couple of examples and then leave you to do some. Because the whole goal of this is to translate verbal phrases. Okay, so if I have 4 less than the quantity six times n. The book says a number n. I guess I will write it the way the book is so you're not confused. A number n. How do you take this phrase, right, and put it into an expression? So you're going to take it in pieces, okay? 4 less. I want you to think 4 less. It means 4 less than something, right? 4 less than something. That means you've got something, right? And you've got 4 less than that, right? This is 4 less than whatever that is, okay? So when you see 4 less than, that translates to minus 4, okay? Next, you're going to see the quantity 6 times a number n, okay? 6 times the number n. So 6 times n, you know that, right, is 6n. So now you know what's going to go here. 6n minus 4. And that's what you're trying to create. How do you do this? You separate it. 4 less than. That's its own little part involving subtraction. The quantity 6 times a number n. That is the second part. And that's all together. So you've got 2 pieces. You've got the quantity 6 times a number n, which is 6n. And you've got 4 less than, which is your second part. Let me do another one with you. And this just takes a little practice. 3 times the sum of 7 and a number y. All right, I want you to pause this. Do it on your own. Don't just follow it with me, and see if you can do it. And then look at what I've done, and if it matches, great. And if it doesn't, hopefully you'll catch your mistakes to learn from them. So pause. Awesome. Well, God willing, you did what I asked. And we're going to dissect this. 3 times. Well, that's easy. We know what that looks like. 3 times. Right? We take this little phrase, and we have 3 times. The sum of 7 and a number y. What's the sum of 7 and a number y? Sum is plus. And we have 7 plus y. All right. So let's make this into a good algebraic expression. 3 times 7 plus y. All right, one more example 1, and then I'll pause and finish the rest of the lesson. And we'll do C. The difference of 22 and the square of m. of, we'll just put a number, ran out of space, a number m. The difference of 22 and a square of a number m. Now, do you remember what I said before? When I have difference of something and something, the first number goes first, right? And this goes second. That means 22 goes here, and the square of a number m squared. So this is going to be 22 minus m squared. It takes a little doing, but you will get there. So I want you to do for homework, in other words, for class tomorrow, guided practice number 1. And I will do part 2 in a minute.